Only when a tree has fallen can you take a measure of it. It is the same with a man. Anne Morrow Lindbergh. And that's what I feel like with Lord of the Fallen. You fall, you die, and then you're like, do I want to keep playing this Souls-like? And half the time I'm like, no. So, it's a Souls-like. Lord of the Fallen's a Souls-like with a lot of flash. The graphics look very nicely detailed. Arguably one of the best looking Souls-likes. And the enemies look suitably creepy and dangerous and evil, depending on which enemy we're talking about. But the game starts off slowly after an interesting opening scene. After playing other games in the genre like Neo and Dark Souls, the Lord of the Fallen's 2023 reboot feels almost like an arcade version of Dark Souls, like sort of. It feels like halfway to Devil May Cry, one of them. So the most interesting twist is the Umbral Lamp, which allows you to view like this second realm, the Umbral realm, and it's a second separate reality from the Axiom reality that's where you started. You die in the Umbral reality, however you're dead for good. The Umbral world spawns deadlier and deadlier enemies when you're looking into it, and the longer you're into it, inside it. You can also soul flay the spirit of your enemies, which, I don't know, I found that was kind of annoying because you try and soul flay someone and then the enemies are able to hit you and you're like left wide open and you can't really defend yourself. At least I didn't find there was a lot of time to do that. So I feel like the dual world elements add an extra dimension to other between this and other Souls-likes. So I feel like the Umbral world almost feels necessary. Like it's kind of like a gimmick of some sorts. Some people say it's justifiable. Oh, it's interesting. It's a different way of looking at, the two worlds. I just felt like, it's kind of a gimmick. It's like, oh, look, there's another world, and it's like, well, really, it's not as interesting as it could be. I just feel like the mechanics of calling bridges and opening doors, it just feels like it really slows everything down. And I feel like that's the problem with this game. Like a lot of it seems to slow the game down instead of it keeping it like an action game, kind of like Devil May Cry. I know it's supposed to be, more of a Souls-like, but it feels like a half arcade, half Souls-like here for me. So the level design seems pretty random, and the difficulty curve is just way too steep. I feel like your character improves in like tiny increments, where the strategy in the game seems to be avoid fighting the same 5 or 6 enemies who have high health in cheap potshot locations. So they're all put in locations where, hey, we know you're gonna probably die here, so we're gonna put the enemies here just to be a pain in the butt. So you respawn to locations just before where you died, only to struggle to get past that challenging area just as before. There's not a lot of room for improvement and upgrading your character in that sense. Ultimately, it's the best looking Souls-like that I've played, but the gameplay balance isn't there. Like I would say 3D Souls-like. Gameplay balance isn't there, unlike the Dark Souls games that you know. Even if this game is a remake of an older game with nicer graphics, the design choices ultimately make this game a flawed experience for the end user. The cutscenes hype the game into a game changer, and so does like all the mechanics that they introduced, but the gameplay still feels like a 7 out of 10 to me. Game that's worth $30 and not the crazy price of $80 plus tax. Plus there's like an ultimate version that's $120, and I'm like, no, I'm not paying that much. So it does not feel like a great deal at all for that price. Ultimately, the lesson of this PS4, PS5 generation, the games may look better, but the gameplay is not as always refined as it should be, and that means you need to trust other people's reviews. Keep on gaming, but don't fall down with the mistake of paying full price for this game. Bye.